Welcome everybody to IMAGI-NATION TV, and today we're talking on the topic of empathy, and we've got our designers joining the show. We've got Hope's Design Awards coming up, and we also have a special friend who joined us yesterday. I am here and I am not going away. Okay, mate, that's good to know. And how are you feeling about today's show? Oh, I'm very much looking forward to talking to Chris and to Daniel, to Claire, to Sophie, and to Anthony. You talk. Okay, mate. Can you go away for a little bit and then come back? I will go away and then come back. So we are looking at empathy. We're looking at what connects us to each other, to the stars, to the world around us. How do we train empathy? How do we engage with it? We, a couple of weeks ago, launched this hoodie, which pays rent. So 50% of this hoodie goes to people who are struggling to pay their rent. And as I was thinking about trying to create meaningful products during this time, I feel like the AIM hoodie does something really good for the world already. We mentor kids, but during this moment with 2 million people struggling to pay rent, I felt like it was almost absurd if you went around about not considering this as business as very, very different to usual. And if you didn't understand the context and you were trying to get people to connect with what you were doing, then I didn't feel like people would be able to trust you or connect with you. So that was our use with empathy. We've since raised close to $20,000, and we have about 100 hoodie connectors who have registered, and they're going to get their own code and be able to sell the hoodie onto other people, and they'll get $30 from every sale they create. So hopefully that helps them get $150, $200 and helps keep a roof over their head during these times. And then $30 of the hoodie will go to help us do this show, to take a mentor into every kid's life around the world, and then the physical work that we do in 6 countries around the world as well when we get out of this post-COVID time. So that was our go at empathy, trying to understand not just our world, but the world around us. And we've got Sophie joining us today. Sophie, you've bought one of the hoodies. What made you want to connect with this hoodie and purchase of this hoodie pays rent?
Well, considering this is such a sad time for so many people, I thought I still have a job. I'm still one of the lucky ones. I can help someone else out by buying a hoodie. It's such an easy and good way to help somebody. And I just think to get through this, we all need to work as a community. We all need to help out. And if you have some spare dollars, why not help those that need it?
Thanks, Sophie. Well, thanks so much for your generosity, and thanks for jumping on the show and sharing a little bit of your story. And hopefully, the pride which you're bringing into supporting other people will become infectious, and that will carry on. And I think in this time, making hope as infectious as anything is going to be really critical for us to keep building positivity and reaching our arm out and showing empathy and care for others. So thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure. Hey, Anthony, how are you?
Hey, g'day, Jake. G'day, everyone.
Hey, tell us a little bit about your story and your connection to AIM.
Sure. Well, we have a really great team of energetic AIM workers down here in Gippsland, right down the bottom of Victoria, in Australia, really, that work in the school that I'm the principal of. My school's called Kurnai College, which is named after the Gunai Kurnai people in Gippsland. So really proud that my school carries their name. And we have, I've been about 1,200 kids at our college across 4 different campuses, but probably 100 Indigenous kids. And we've been buying the AIM hoodie for the last 3 or 4 years, and we like to buy all of our kids a hoodie, and they just love them. They wear them wear them to school. We let them, we sort of incorporate it into the uniform, and Yeah, we really like to support AIM and the great work that they do in our school and across the country. So,
and what made you with this particular one, this hoodie that pays rent? What made you purchase a fair chunk of them? I think you bought $1,600 worth.
Yeah, well, I just thought it's a visible way we can do something to acknowledge that there's a lot of people doing it tough, and there's you guys are doing great things with the money you're raising for it, and it's a visible way that we can show our support for people that are having a tough time right now, and there's lots of them. So a small way that we could perhaps do something.
Hey, before I let you go, what does empathy mean to you, and why do you care about other people, and why do you do the work you do?
Oh, well, I guess I work in education, Jack, so I know that education can be a way to move forward with your life and to empower you to do good things. And I know so many of our kids have so much potential, and I know that they've got a few obstacles to overcome. So I'd like to do as much as I can and what our school can to help kids realise their potential. And I mean, that's what AIM does all the time, and trying to get kids to reach their potential. So, yeah, I guess that's a bit of a connection for us at Kurnai College.
Well, thanks, Anthony, for all the work that you're doing. Know that, we're standing alongside you, and we'll keep doing everything we can to make sure those kids get to achieve their potential, and we'll be doing that for many years to come, hopefully together. So thanks very much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks, everyone. Great, Jack. Great to be here, and thanks. Yeah, see you later.
All good. Great to hear you on the chat line, everybody. Brendan Newton, can't wait to hear from the Thank You founder. What a power. Good to see the rhyming as well, Brendo. Georgie Kalatis saying, yes, Sophie, so proud to have one of our mentors on the show. Thank you for volunteering your time and your help and hustle the past few months. Cam Northey, you're a legend, Anthony. Bring your questions in, send your comments in. We're about to jump into the designers panel and chat with Chris, Daniel and Claire about empathy. Claire, welcome to the show. I've got rid of that other mug and now it is my turn to shine. Now, everybody on the chat line, I do not have a name yet. I have decided I am from somewhere near Transylvania and I am potentially connected to vampires. So please send in your suggestions of your names. Claire, tell me a little bit about your work.
Okay, so I like to describe myself as a collector of good eggs or a curator of humans. I am really interested in all the innovative, exciting, inventive ways that people are participating in acts of giving and pulling them together so that they can collaborate and do amazing things together. In the past, I've founded the Atelier program at the Art Gallery of New South Wales when I was Next Generation Development Manager there. And just recently I co-founded with my friends Groundswell, which is Australia's first giving circle that funds strategic high impact climate action.
Is it hard in this current moment to keep the critical investment, the critical challenge in climate at the top of the pops? How are you navigating this moment to keep that cause part of the conversation?
Yeah, it's been interesting because I feel like it was really on everyone's radars during the bushfires. I think we were seeing in a very real way the impacts of climate manifesting in real time. For a long time, it felt like it was something abstract that will happen sometime in the future to somebody else. But that brought it all home. But very soon after that, everybody was talking about climate change, but very quickly everybody was talking about coronavirus, understandably. But I think for us in the climate movement, it's also been the time for us to draw those even more strongly, those links between planetary health and human health, because I think that's what everybody's thinking about at the moment. Obviously, it's about human health a lot, but there are very close connections between the two.
Daniel, what the heck made you start acting and doing something in your life?
It's a good question. This is my first interview by someone who doesn't have a name, so I'm just trying to get my head around that.
You can make up a name. What do you think?
Honestly, I don't think that's above my pay grade.
Okay, carry on.
But I was 19 and I was, like many of us, staring what felt like two different worlds in the face. One was some research I'd done on extreme poverty, on the fact that we were losing children every single day, about 4,500 kids to waterborne disease. That at the time in 2008, there was 900 million people who didn't have clean water. And yet at the same time, there's this, like, on the same planet, extreme consumerism. We are spending so much money on stuff. So like the stats say $51 trillion a year is what we'll spend on consumer product. And the thought I had was, like, imagine if there was consumer product that existed to end something that shouldn't exist, extreme poverty. And the first product we had was water, a brand of water that would fund water projects. And that's kind of growing into a whole bunch of different products like hand wash and sanitizer and nappies. But the whole mission is the same, helping end extreme poverty through empowering us as consumers to make a pretty simple switch.
I think that what you do should be the business model of the 21st century. I think every major business, consumers should be saying, what is your social enterprise arm? What is your good tax? Otherwise, we shouldn't be buying those products, because the loop for a fairer world is critical, and having businesses like yours succeed help us do that. Chris, tell us what the heck you've done with your life.
Clare and Daniel are pretty hard acts to follow. Most people know me as the co-founder of Pedestrian.tv. So if you're not familiar with Pedestrian, it's Australia's largest youth-focused publishing company. So we publish a number of websites now, but kind of, I guess, when we were at the business and sort of, we're starting that out, it was just all around Pedestrian.tv, which is a kind of, sort of pop culture, kind of news, media, social awareness, kind of publication that reaches, kind of over 1 million, kind of young Australians every single month. So yeah, that's what most people know me for. I've kind of, we ran that business for about 15 years, and then we kind of sold that business to Channel 9, which was, kind of a cool experience to go through. And now I'm working on a couple of new businesses as well. So yeah, just sort of, I've always loved kind of, entrepreneurialism and that ability to sort of, kind of use empathy to sort of understand what people are looking for and what they want, and then, how you can kind of create, products or businesses that kind of, help people and facilitate that, and kind of make a positive difference in the world.
One of the fascinating things for me when I think about change, tough topic, change. Tough topic. And you preach to the converted. Oh yes, I love you untitled. I love you no name. Good on you. You're part of such a good thing. And everybody pats themselves on the back, pat. And then you think, how do I talk to the other people? The people on the other side who are maybe seen as the bad guys or who are part of the problem to fix, and you got to come up with these solutions. How the heck have you guys managed to tell stories to hit the mainstream? Because I know, Daniel, you guys have done fantastic storytelling, and it wouldn't be seen as a traditional charitable storytelling lens. You're good. You're better than a lot of the main businesses at telling stories. Chris, you beat Channel 9. You got in the game and they wanted to see something valuable that you created. Claire, you're building a new way of people thinking about this stuff. All three of you, tell me, how do you tell stories to the other side?
It's a great question.
Who wants to go first?
Yeah. Well, let's tag team. Like, I think it's really important just to call out that this is the mission. It is to tell stories to the other side. It is to cut through. It is to get to the mainstream. I think a lot of people have this idea that social or innovation should stay niche, but really it has to become mainstream. And thank you, kind of almost to Claire's point earlier, it's like, we've got to get the biggest issues in our world into the mainstream. And we're going to get people to notice. And thank you. We've done some pretty crazy stuff to get noticed because our mission's important. Lives need changing. Our battle, quick 30-second example, was the two biggest supermarkets in Australia had said no to us for 5 years. So we, through a social media campaign, called people to take action onto their social feeds. And then we flew helicopters above their offices for half an hour. And we had giant signs basically petitioning them to stock the product. And it was wild, but it was about cutting through in a world that is already so noisy. And that's the mission I think the three of us and many more are on.
I think also using empathy to understand where people are coming from. Like often, we like understanding what that, kind of to Daniel's point, like if you can use empathy to understand what the wider population wants, or what your customers, how you can kind of enable them, then that's something that can be, utilized to drive change. But even like, kind of, again, it's hard when you don't know the name of the person that's addressed you. But we'll call you Vamp now.
Vammy! Vammy! And just like that, a name is born. Look, this branding genius. What will you think of next? Carry on.
But I think, and I mean, to Daniel and, Claire's point, and, I think what sort of Jack was talking about at the start as well, like, kind of the social good is, it is like kind of the way of the future. So I think, if you have a brand that doesn't stand for anything, then, ultimately it's going to be a brand that's not going to be there, in the future. So I think kind of, speaking to that, sometimes speaking the language of the people that you're trying to change the minds of can be a great way to get your foot in the door.
And Claire, one of our biggest challenges is seeing climate as politicized. Like it's crazy stuff to think that you've got this issue that affects everyone, all of us, somehow being political. And I find one of the things, like I love people who are fighting for climate change and would, I don't know, maybe traditionally be standing over this side or maybe to the left, and other people are traditionally to the right. Now, we often sometimes, the people who are pushing for progress can demonize the other side and forget their humanity as well. How are you finding the humanity in people who have grown up in practices that maybe were, negative for the climate, but great for their family, for their growth, for their identity? How do we move people together?
Yeah, so that kind of links into what we were just discussing. And as I was listening to everyone's responses, I guess what you were saying really is that, to be a good, what I want to share is from my experience is that to be a good storyteller, you actually have to begin by being a good listener, because it can be super divisive and there are so many different opinions flying around. So to get your own message across, you actually have to begin with listening to others. And at Groundswell, we really try to meet people with where they're at. And with our own storytelling, we do try to break that up into sort of bespoke constituency-based work, so that we are using for our own storytelling the most trusted messengers within people's own communities. So, for example, you've got incredible people like Seed Mob and Original Power working with Aboriginal communities. Our first grant at Groundswell went out to the emergency leaders for climate action. And you might remember over the fires that Greg Mullins was in the media a lot. And I think that he was able to reach such a broad audience with that storytelling and resonate. And it wasn't political because it was coming from someone who had lived experience from the front line of the bushfires. And I think that that's where you can really successfully reach people, is if you work with those trusted voices in the community rather than taking a top-down approach and hammering too hard on the science or hammering too hard yelling on the streets, as much as it's important to protest as well.
When Daniel, when you go out to the mass market and you fly a helicopter, did you fly the helicopter?
No, no. Again,
no. Next challenge. And now with you do a big stunt. There's big exposure. Surely there's some critics, and when you lie down in bed at night and you hear some of those critical voices, how do you process them, and how do you focus on the big mission?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think the watch out is we can't just become stuntivists. The helicopter thing for us was big, but to Claire's point, like we sat down and really for 2 years picked apart what are the objectives that people are going to have, from the retailers to consumers. And so we built a campaign that hopefully nailed as many of those points as we could. But we also, at the end of all of 2 years of work and a successful campaign, we got a whole bunch of new critics, a whole bunch of people saying everything from like, that guy's hair is like just real random stuff, like about our clothes.
What did they say about your hair?
I don't know. It was too perfect or something. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I hate that critique.
But like the sort of the personal attack, the mission attack, the methodology attack. Look, I think at the end of the day, we will do our best at thank you. And we know that we're not perfect. We're not trying to be perfect. We are trying to work around the rough edges. I think we have to, and this is where empathy comes in, realize that we need progress, we need leadership, but we cannot expect perfection. And every great leader and every great organization has its critics. It's not a popularity contest reality, and that's hard to avoid. I've had to get comfortable with that. I mean, I look at someone like a Martin Luther King, incredible leader of a movement at his time. We quote him a lot, you know, as he's inspiring. But at the time, he's on the FBI most wanted list. He had his critics. He had that kind of pressure whilst also leading a really critical movement.
Well, the other fascinating thing, I was doing some reading. I love to read, you see. I'm interested in the universal basic income, so I've been doing a bit of research about it. In my family in Transylvania, our vampires, we all have our own share of blood. We love it. We love it. Now, one of the things I found out was Martin Luther King, he proposed a universal basic income. So after the I Have a Dream speech, for 5 years, his big campaign was for all poor people. So he stood up for African Americans in the civil rights movement. And then he said, no, this has to be about all poverty and all people. His final book on it is fascinating to read about. And then just as he was assassinated, 2 to 3 weeks afterwards, there was planned this huge march on Washington, D.C. to show what poor people live like, to have this huge poor tent embassy, which is kind of like what happened in 1970s in Australia with the tent embassy with Aboriginal people. See, I love history. Chris, who is your favorite designer you've ever come across? Someone that you've just been like, whoa, that's a wizard.
It's actually really easy. Like the closest thing that I know to a wizard when it comes to graphic design is that actually someone who was on this show a few weeks ago, which is Jonathan Zawada. So he's a madman and just a genius. And yeah, we were really fortunate to kind of work with him a few times at Pedestrian on a couple of projects. Like we interviewed him back in the very early days. He redesigned our logo, he redesigned our website. Yeah, and he was phenomenal. We also had this amazing graphic designer at, kind of over at Pedestrian called Gordon Douglas Smith, who's also an absolute genius. And, I owe a huge amount to him because in a company of 100 people, he's the, kind of basically our only design resource. And, so everything that kind of, Pedestrian ever created through its history was, in recent history especially, it was created by Gordy. So, yeah, probably Jonathan Zawada and Gordon. So,
with Jonathan, when you look at a Jonathan and you say he's a brilliant designer, why?
I think sometimes because he doesn't over-design. He kind of knows where he needs it. I think he kind of understands the negative space in design and like knows where to stop sometimes. And I think that kind of simplicity is really simple. Is really, really amazing. Like, I mean, I remember with like sort of, the Pedestrian logo, we came to him with something and like he just sort of tweaked it. And, I think when we first looked at it, we were like, oh, I thought we'd do something like really crazy and out there. But then every time I looked at that logo and the more we looked at it, it was just like the simplicity, the ability to communicate to a mass audience. Like it just kind of ticked everything that we kind of needed. And it's
Da Vinci said, I think Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. He is my greatest uncle on my mother's sister's side. Claire, we have a question coming to you from Daniel. And before we get there and Daniel thinks about the question, we're going to go to the chat line. Tom Wensley says, social good is the way of the future. Steph Beck says, love Pedestrian TV, reading the articles every day. We have Perul saying, Claire, thank you for standing up for climate and for the arts. See a problem, fix it. Mark of a champion. Lisa Woodward said, love the hoodies. Great work, AIM. Thank you, Lisa. Tell everybody, please go buy lots. We need to help lots and lots of people. Let's do it. Daniel, what is your question for Claire?
What's the next step for you in this? The whole world seems to be in chaos. You guys are on a really important mission. I think everyone's standing with you in a way, but do you have a next step from here, or where are you at?
Yeah, so look, we launched in Groundswell in February, and it was quite extraordinary, the response that we had. We actually started just very slowly growing social media over summer in the lead up to our launch, and we had one post that just went viral, and overnight we had a few thousand followers, and we had 400 people turn up to our launch, and it was all going red hot, ready to go, great traction. We have more than 200 Groundswell members. We've raised more than $250,000 for climate action, all in a matter of weeks. And next, we were meant to be launching in Melbourne, Brisbane. The ambition was to go national and have at least 500,000 Groundswell members by the end of this year. And it's something I've been reflecting on a lot, having said that I like to collect good eggs and bring people together, is how do we do that digitally now? Because I'm such a face-to-face person and a gatherer of people and love bringing people together. And I think that generally in philanthropy as well, that's where you mobilize people is when they have proximity to a cause. So again, like I said earlier, in this time, given the goalposts have shifted now because of coronavirus, is that we are really working hard in this space, not just us personally, but the whole movement, is to demonstrate the place for renewables in the future when it comes time to having to rebuild the economy back to its full strength, that we want to be reflecting on what we want to keep, what we want to lose, and what we want to create in the new future. I think the fact that the world has had to pause has actually been quite fortuitous, though I wish it hadn't happened this way. But the fact that that the planes are grounded, that the cars have slowed down, that the oil prices have dropped, and that the air is clearer than it's ever been in so many parts of the world. You can find positives within this challenging time. And
you also,
for us at Groundswell,
when you add to that, we now have an example where every government can work together, every system on mass change. And so now forever, there cannot be anybody saying we can't move quickly, we cannot move decisively, and we cannot move together. So that excuse for government, you go, sorry, you can't say that anymore because you showed us how you did it.
That's right.
And the other big one I think is fantastic is economically, we now have clean energy is 7% return and oil is 7% return as well. Thank you to The Guardian for sending me their sponsored articles for me to be able to read. It was fantastic reading. Claire, Daniel, Chris, thank you for joining us so much on the show. To finish us up, what is your message to a 15-year-old out there trying to make sense of learning today and imagine tomorrow?
I can kick off. If I think, my background is really in entrepreneurialism, and I think the thing for me is that, when it comes to, kind of building or creating something new, is that, through, whether it's social entrepreneurialism or just even kind of, creating a, business that has some sort of, positive impact in the world, that it's a fantastic way to be able to really design your own life and design the kind of future that you want to see. And that there's no better time to start than when you're young, because the younger you are, like, the less you have to lose, the more support you have around you, and it only gets harder as you get older. So if you're 15, then, that's a great time to get going.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think start now. You do have the power to change stuff, to see a problem in the world or a challenge and actually take action that can mean something. And don't let this crisis that the world's in stop you. I think we founded, you were pretty young, but also it was during the kind of the end of the GFC. So everyone we met with was like, oh, sorry, there's a global financial crisis. This is low on our priority list. Doesn't matter. We got in the game then. And actually don't let nothing stop you, in short.
I actually just want to acknowledge and thank you, all the kids out there that are already doing such amazing things with the school strikers, for the climate strikes out there. You guys are the living, tangible representatives of our future. And I'm just incredibly proud that you're standing up and proactively participating in shaping your own future. And I would just encourage more of that. So thanks for all that you guys are doing.
Claire, thank you for your work. Know that you have friends in AIM. We will support you wherever we can. We had a program that we were about to roll out this year where kids were going to be imagination ambassadors and take on a 100-day challenge at their school to create a fairer world. And a lot of the work was going to be around the environment. So let's keep working together and keep finding these good eggs to rise up. Chris, thank you for your work and support. And Pedestrian TV has been fantastic working with us. And you are a very good board director. You've done one good board meeting with AIM. I hear from the CEO you're doing very good work. And Daniel, let's find ways we can work together. Maybe you can mentor one of our rock stars, or we can make a hoodie, or we can just do stuff that creates change together. You're a champion. Lots of respect. Please keep charging ahead, you three. You're fantastic people. And thank you for joining us on today's show.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. Now we go to Hope's Design Awards.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. On to Hope's Design Awards. Let's go. What a wonderful, wonderful panel today. Weren't they fantastic? Oh, I love Daniel and what he's been doing. Oh, I'm Hope, by the way, and these are my design awards. I love Claire's work, and isn't it great when people just stand up and they act? And everything Chris has done with stories and influencing youth culture and being a positive person in the world and showing us how to just get things done. Today, for our design awards, I'm going to give an award for the Future Award. And we give this to a youngster who's doing amazing stuff. So check this guy out. Okay, I've got to read my notes. This week's Future Award goes to Dutch teenage inventor and entrepreneur Boyan Slat. In 2011, age 16, Slat came across more plastic than fish while diving in Greece. He decided to devote a high school project for deeper investigation into ocean plastic pollution and why it was considered impossible to clean up. He later came up with the idea to build a passive system. Whoa! Using a circulating ocean currents to his advantage, which he presented at a TEDx talk in Delft in 2012. Slat continued his aerospace engineering studies at uni to devote time to his idea. He founded the Ocean Cleanup in 2013, of which he is the CEO, and they're working relentlessly for the removal of plastic within the world's ocean, just as we are working at AIM to try and end inequality and build a fairer world. Technology is the most potent agent of change. It's an amplifier of our human capabilities, Slat wrote in The Economist, where other change agents rely on reshuffling the existing building blocks of society. Technological innovation creates entirely new ones, expanding our problem-solving toolbox. And Slat's hoping to remove through his invention all the plastic in the ocean by the time he's finished his work. Boyan Slat, this award goes to you. Thank you so much. And the Lifetime Achievement Award goes to the Yunupingu family. Today, we recognise the incredible achievements of this family from the Northern Territory who have done astounding work in Australia. The Yunupingu family has many contributions to art, culture, wellbeing and rights for Indigenous people. They found that the Yothu Yindi Foundation was founded in 1990, and since 1999, the foundation's centrepiece has been the Garma Festival of Traditional Cultures. 5 clans of Northeast Arnhem Land welcome people from around Australia and the world to share in the celebration of Yolngu cultural traditions. Garma is an important place for truth-telling and is the largest site of cultural sharing and learnings in Australia. Perhaps the most famous among the Yunupingu family is Dr. Jeffrey Goromal Yunupingu. Many of you know him as Goromal, who sadly passed away a few years ago and has been a wonderful storyteller for us all. The Yunupingu family also were awesome as Yothi Indi and had Treaty, which was an anthem that resonated for Indigenous people around the world. And we hope one day to see treaties in Australia and treaties for all Indigenous people. Today, we celebrate Boy and Slat and the Yunupingus in Hope's Design Awards. Thank you all for joining us on the show, being a part of IMAGI-NATION TV. Please head to aimmentoring.com and grab an Imagination hoodie. Remember to subscribe, keep supporting each other. Thanks for all your comments on the YouTube chat line. Alexander Jackson, the wealth of knowledge and experience amongst you all is phenomenal. Thank you for sharing. Thank you to all our guests. Thank you for supporting us, and let's keep imagining the future we can build tomorrow. I'll see you for tomorrow's segment of the keynote speakers. Bye, everyone.